Hi, welcome. Today, I'd like to give you some very powerful information that has the potential to change your life like night and day. And it's done absolute wonders for me and for my clients. So, what I would do is suggest that you find a quiet place without distractions, grab a pen and paper, and take some notes. A mentor of mine once said that if it's worth remembering, it's worth writing down. And to be honest, that advice has served me well over the years. Now, if you're struggling with procrastination, overthinking, that feeling of imposter syndrome, maybe bad habits, or the inconsistent months or roller coaster of emotions, let me tell you, you're in the right place. And today I'm going to shed some light on why that's happening, but most importantly, how you can change it. Okay. I imagine that you know deep down inside that you're capable of way more. You know you've got potential. You probably even know what you should be doing. You're just not doing it, right? And if you could only find a way to get out of your own head or get out of your own way and stop being your own worst enemy, you'd probably be miles ahead or further along than you are right now. Am I right? Well, I get it. And if that speaks to you, trust me when I say that you're in the right place. So keep watching. Honestly, I think that it's absolutely criminal that this kind of stuff isn't taught in school. And I oftentimes wish and wonder how much further ahead I'd be if I had learned this decades ago. And the reason is because the truth is that time is our most valuable resource. And a lot of people will prioritize money. They put it up on a pedestal and they put it ahead of their own health and their own happiness, which to me is absolutely crazy. Because if you think about it, time is one of those like precious things that money you can always earn more of. It's an infinite resource, okay? There's no cap or limit on the amount of money that you can earn in a lifetime. But time, on the other hand, is one of those few things that once you spend it, you are never getting it back. Okay. And that's why it's so important to take action now, because every year spent stuck in negativity or bad habits or self doubt and overthinking is a year that you could have used to step into your potential and finally become the person that you know that you're capable of being. Take Aaron, for example, like an absolute beauty. Okay. And when I first met Aaron, though, he was stuck in negativity. He was spinning in his wheels. He hated his job and he was trying to find his way. Okay. Now he's building his business. He's running a team of 5 guys. He's doing it his way and he's crushing his goals and earning more than he ever has. Okay. It's super inspiring and I'm really humbled to have played like even a small part in that. It's pretty awesome. Or Janine. Janine is an absolute warrior, okay? And she's gone through a huge transformation, not only mentally, but physically, emotionally, and financially as well. The really cool thing about Janine is her and her husband are doing this together. And I oftentimes say that, couples that grow together stay together, okay? And together they're building their life and they're enriching their relationships as they go. It's amazing to witness, and it's been an honor and a privilege. Or Mitch. What can I say about Mitch? Mitch is a savage, okay? And when we first met, Mitch was in the sales position, and he was making pretty decent money, but he knew that he wanted more freedom and more control over his time and his finances. And now Mitch is self-employed and he's building his business and his brand. And Mitch is like on the verge of making like his wildest dreams a reality. Super cool to witness. And Sammy's a funny one here because Sammy thought he had a pretty good understanding of this mindset work. And he'd read all the books, he watched the YouTube videos and thought he had a pretty good handle on it, like I said. But once we started working together, Sammy was able to triple his monthly revenue, and he went from earning 20 grand a month to 60 grand a month within 90 days. It was wild. Business just blew up for him. It was super cool. But Sammy's such a great guy. But that's just a few. And there are countless more clients who went from feeling stuck or lost or spinning their wheels to actually creating life on their terms. Okay. Like Jamie, for instance, here. When I first met Jamie, she was working in a job that she hated, and she knew deep down inside that she wanted to do her own thing, create art, and sell that as a business. Now she's selling her pottery. She's quit her full time job. She's earning more money as an artist than she ever was in her full time position. And her art is selling all around the world, including places as far away as like Dubai, which is super cool and really inspiring. Or Ignacio here. Ignacio, since working together, he got a promotion, a pay raise, and used his newfound confidence and skill set to perform on stage in front of hundreds of people. And I was actually in attendance when he did that, and he did a phenomenal job. It was pretty impressive. Okay. Or Jason here, who started his own business and stepped into that CEO role, which is super powerful and really inspiring. But there's countless more. I could go on and on. But I want to share a word of caution for you before we go any further, okay? And that's that if you're looking for a quick fix or a magic pill or a shortcut to solve your problems, this is not the place, okay? I mean, I'm sure that there are some coaches out there who are happy to sell you the moon, overpromise and underdeliver, but that's just not me, okay? Now I want to be honest with you. The results that you just witnessed, okay, that came from really digging in and actually doing the work, okay? And the truth is that that's not always easy, but it is worth it, all right? And if it worked for them, it can absolutely work for you too. And of course, that's to say that, there are people like Cade here, for example, who just get it right away and it just clicks, okay? And they take the ball and they run with it. And with a few small changes, they're able to unlock that next level really quickly. And, if I go back and I look at some of those reviews, like words like transformative and life changing are some of the most common things that I hear from clients. And I absolutely love it. And yeah, it warms my heart, and it's been really cool to even be able to witness the change and transformation in so many of these people's lives. So one of the most important lessons that I can share with you has to do with your mind, okay? And oftentimes I ask people, you're aware that you have a human mind, right? And I always get some funny looks and some weird, awkward laughs, okay? But then I'll follow it up with another question, and I'll ask, how much do you really know about your mind? And it's often then that most people realize, actually, I don't think I know all that much about my own mind. Which to me is just fascinating, because if you ask me, we're in possession of one of the most advanced pieces of biological technology known to mankind, okay? And yet most people don't know much about it, and two, don't know how to use it to ensure optimal results. And if you think about it, this thing is responsible for all of our actions, right? It's responsible for all of our decisions, and it's responsible for helping us to create not only ourselves, but our entire life. And most people are just walking around with very little understanding of what it is or how to use it, okay? Which blows my mind. But I'm of the belief that the more that I know about my mind and myself, the better I can use it. And the better I use it, the better results I get, okay? So to help, I'm going to call on the help of this stickman diagram. Now, this diagram was originally invented by a man named Dr. Thurman Fleet back in the 1930s. You don't have to remember that, okay? But this stickman diagram is meant to illustrate a couple of things. Number one, it's meant to illustrate the the flow of thought energy, okay? Now, I don't know if it's ever occurred to you that thought is a flow of energy or a form of energy, but it's true. And that's helpful to understand because all energy operates according to law. And once you understand that and you understand the laws that govern it, that's when you can begin to harness it and control it or direct it for a specific purpose. It's just like electricity. Once you understand how electricity works, we can control it and direct it to power your house or power your car. Okay? Thought is no different. Once you understand how it operates, you can use it to your benefit. The other thing that this is meant to illustrate is the human mind. Okay? And psychology tells us that the human mind consists of two parts. We have our conscious mind, which is oftentimes referred to as our logical mind. Okay? This is the part of your mind that you go to school for, that you fill with all kinds of facts and figures and data and information. All right? But we also have our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is oftentimes referred to as our emotional mind. Okay? Now, real basic psychological premise here, okay, is that your thoughts control your emotions. That's why when you have a happy thought, you typically have a corresponding happy emotion. Am I right? Well, your emotions go on to influence the actions that you take, or in some cases don't take, okay? And then depending upon those actions, it's going to produce a specific result in your life. Can you see that? Okay. So it stands to reason that if you want a different result in your life, well, you really only need to do one thing, and you go back to the source. And when you change your thoughts, it has this domino effect, okay, that changes your emotional state, that inspires you to take new and different action. And then based on those new and different actions, it produces a different result in your life, okay? It's the law of cause and effect. Can you see that? They say that when you change your thoughts, you change your life. You may have heard that phrase before, but it's true. And this is why it's true, okay? The challenge, however, and this is where it gets interesting, is that the average person has about 60,000 thoughts per day, okay? Which sounds like a lot. And I know some of you are thinking, wow, my mind, I probably have even more than that. My mind never turns off. It's constantly going, okay? And I get that, right? But what's interesting is that of those 60,000 thoughts per day, okay, 95% of them are actually repetitive, meaning that we have a pattern of thinking or a habit of thought. And 95% of the thoughts that you think today are also the same thoughts that you had yesterday and the day before that and the day before that and the day before that. And let's just pause there for a second. Because if you think for a second that your life has anything to do with the thoughts that you think, okay, well, your future is not going to look a whole lot different than today unless you start thinking different thoughts, right? The next part is that our habit of thinking or a pattern of thought is predominantly negative. Now, it might vary a little bit from person to person, but I imagine if you're being honest with yourself, you recognize that a lot of your pattern of thinking is caught up in either worry or stress or anxiety or worst case scenarios and what ifs. You know, maybe a combination of complaining about your circumstance or your situation or possibly even yourself, you know. But a large part of our pattern of thinking is actually negative. Scientists would say it suggests about 80%. And the reason is because we have what's known as a negativity bias, okay? And a part of what we do together is we shift that default negative setting to more positive over time. And I have a very simple but very powerful practice that I'll share with you to help exactly that, okay? And then lastly, 95% of the thoughts that you think on a daily basis largely go unnoticed, okay? They're typically unconscious, meaning that most people are just so busy going about their day doing their thing that they're not really paying all that much attention to what's actually going on in here, okay? And there's a term called metacognition. Metacognition is the process of quite simply becoming more aware of some of those unconscious thought patterns. Why? Well, it's because once we've become aware of them, that's when we can begin to identify them, acknowledge them, and replace them with more positive and empowering thought patterns that support our future goals rather than just serving our past. Okay. Now, sometimes people will say things like, well, knowledge is power. Okay. Or when I know better, I do better, right? Is another popular one. But the truth is that oftentimes there's a very big difference between what somebody knows and what they actually do. Okay. And the truth is that knowledge is only potential power. Knowledge is only powerful once it's applied. Okay. And most people are surprised to learn this, but the truth is that our conscious mind is really only responsible for about 5% of what we do. It's crazy when you think about it and kind of scary, really. But the truth is that 95% of our behavior is controlled by our emotional mind. And Jim Quick says it best when he says that we're not logical creatures, we're biological. And that causes us to act emotionally most of the time. What happens is most people act emotionally based on how they're feeling in the moment. And then more often than not, what we do is we go back and we layer on logic after the fact to justify our own actions or our behavior or lack thereof to make ourselves feel better about whatever we did or didn't do. Okay. That's the truth. All right. And I imagine you're probably thinking about some people in your life that you think, oh, yeah, for sure. I can totally see that. But we're all guilty of that to a certain extent. Okay. Now, we're not as logical as we'd like to think. It sucks, but it's true. Okay. The truth is that 95% of our behavior is actually controlled by our subconscious mind. Now, down here, we have our emotions. We also have our beliefs, and we have a little thing called a paradigm. Okay. And a paradigm you can think of as like a belief system. Okay. Now, I want you to write this down. Okay. If you've got that pen and paper handy, write this down. You cannot outperform your self-image. You cannot outperform your self-image. Now, your self-image is exactly what it sounds like. Okay. It's your subconscious beliefs, attitudes, and perceptions about who you think you are, what you think you're capable of, and what you think that you deserve. Okay. Baked right into that are concepts or notions about who you think you're not, what you think you're not capable of, and some element of what you think you don't deserve. Okay. Now, if you've got that pen and paper handy, I would encourage you to write this down too. That whatever you believe about yourself on the inside is exactly what you will create on the outside. Whatever you believe about yourself on the inside is exactly what you will create on the outside. Okay? And the reason is because your self-image operates exactly like a thermostat. And now I'm sure that you have some understanding of how a thermostat operates, okay? But I imagine that in the room that you're in right now, there's a thermostat on the wall, okay? And that thermostat is set to a specific temperature, right? And usually it's about 21 degrees if you're in Canada in Celsius, or about 72 degrees if you're in Fahrenheit in the States, okay? Now, the temperature of the room might fluctuate a little bit up and down depending upon the weather outside and that sort of thing. But that thermostat setting is meant to ensure that you stay within this kind of band of comfort, right? While your paradigm and your self-image operates exactly the same way, in the sense that your results in life might fluctuate a little bit up and down, okay? But your self-image is meant to ensure that you stay within this band of comfort, aka your comfort zone. Okay. And unless we change that thermostat setting and create what's known as a paradigm shift, we will always unconsciously find a way to self-sabotage and revert back to old habits, old patterns, and ensure that we continue to produce the same old results. It's sad and kind of scary, but it's true. And I'm sure that you can think of people in your life who maybe, you know, set a New Year's resolution to get in shape and lose some weight. And they have good intentions to do so, right? Maybe they're pretty consistent at the start with exercising more, eating better. But typically, how long does that last? A few weeks, a month tops? Before what? Well, they tend to fall off and revert back to old habits and old patterns and ensure that they continue to produce the same old results. More often than not, those people put all that weight back on again and then some, don't they? You may have even heard the statistics about people who win the lottery. And 70% of the people who win the lottery end up filing for bankruptcy within 3 years. It's crazy, but it's true. And you got to wonder, like, what the heck is happening? How does somebody burn through that much cash in such a short period of time? And the truth is, it's probably a multitude of factors, but one of the biggest reasons is because their outside results, the number that they see in their bank account, that lifestyle, no longer reflects their beliefs about who they think they are, what they think they're capable of, most importantly, what they believe they deserve. And so they unconsciously find a way to burn through it. They self-sabotage, spend it, or give it away. And their paradigm and self-image brings them back to their comfort zone where they feel comfortable. Now, just to be really clear, that doesn't mean that you like it, okay? It doesn't mean that that's what you want, but in life, we don't get what we want, we get what we are, all right? Now, there are really only two main and powerful ways to create what's known as a paradigm shift, okay? And again, this information has the power and the potential to change your life in a big way. So if you've got that pen and paper handy, I would encourage you to write this down as well. There are only two ways to change a paradigm and create what's known as a paradigm shift, okay? The first is what you can think of as a strong emotional impact. Now, this could take any number of different forms, all right? But it's typically a crisis of some sort, okay? It's some form of like hitting rock bottom. It could be a health scare or a near-death experience. You know, it could be the loss of a loved one or maybe even a divorce or something like that, okay? But, or maybe a bankruptcy scare, or COVID was like that for some people. You saw COVID really disrupted a lot of people's pattern of thinking and pattern of being, and they made some really significant changes during that time, right? The challenge with a strong emotional impact is two things. One, it's always negative, okay? It's like, you're getting backed into a corner where now you don't have a choice. You have to make a change, okay? And two, it's outside of your control, all right? You've got to do something. It's dire straits, okay? But the second way to create a paradigm shift is through what's known as repetition of thought. Repetition of thought. I always say repetition of thought combined with elite level coaching, okay? And again, this could take any number of different forms. Ideally, it would be a combination of many, but it could be things like visualizations or affirmations or immersion. What I mean by immersion is like literally immersing yourself in the material and in the environments and surrounding yourself with the people who have high standards and a low tolerance for BS, okay? The thinkers, the dreamers, the doers, the people who are taking massive action to improve their lives and give you that feeling that anything is possible. That kind of energy is contagious and is really easy to get caught up in that, all right? But the key takeaway here is repetition of thought. It's reading it and rereading it over and over and over again, hearing it and rehearing it over and over and over again. So many times immersing yourself in the content and in the community and in the conversations that these concepts are, you can't remember if it was something that you read or original thought of your own. It's indistinguishable from some of your own thoughts and your own beliefs. But the truth is that unless this changes, okay, your subconscious pattern of thinking, nothing, no amount of change or transformation on the outside is going to last for very long. Okay. And just to be really clear here, this is not about just reading another book or watching another YouTube video. This is about creating deep and lasting transformational change to your subconscious pattern of thinking. And if that doesn't change, no amount of change is going to stick long term. Okay. But that's exactly why my coaching is so successful, because it's not just surface level tips and tricks. We go deep. And my coaching is based on three very distinct things. Okay. At its base is what's called applied psychology. So it's understanding how your mind operates so you can begin to start to get it to work for you rather than against you. Okay. And let me tell you, if there's something that's controlling 95% of your behavior, don't you think you'd benefit from learning more about it, what it is, and more specifically, how you can change it? 100%, right? The second part is strategy. So it's not all just theory, okay? This is about specific action steps that you can begin to implement. This is where that knowledge becomes applied with specific steps that you can begin to take right away to produce better results, okay? And then third, last but not least, is the accountability. And this is the part that's so important for so many people. And the truth is, there's a direct relationship between accountability and success. The more accountable you are to others, the more successful you'll be. And the reason is really simple. It's because you're actually 800% more likely to follow through on a task when you're accountable to another person. And that's exactly why people who invest in coaching ultimately achieve their goals 5 times faster than people who don't, or than people who try to figure it out on their own. So now that you know that, okay, you're at a bit of a crossroads. And as far as I can tell, you've got 2 roads in front of you. All right. One, you can keep on doing what you've been doing and try to figure it out on your own. Okay. Or 2, we can do it together. And I can give you a proven framework and a step-by-step process that's worked for me and countless other clients. And I know what I did. I know what I continue to do. And to be honest with you, it's made all the difference in the world. And the reason is because they say that success leaves clues, okay? And coaching actually helps to collapse time. And it will save you years, not to mention all the time, heartache, and tears that come with trying to figure it out as you go. All right. So the last thing that I want to leave you with here is that mindset changes everything. And when you change your mindset, everything on the outside begins to change by default. And so this is an opportunity for you to step into that next level version of you, where you're a top performer living life on your terms with clarity, confidence, and consistency, so you can continually show up and perform at your best. I hope that you gain some valuable takeaways, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.